Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
All right, we're rolling. What's cracking?
Oh man, my back just now. It just these chairs. It's fantastic.
What is going on with your back? You've had back issues in the past, right? We
Oh, yeah.
talked about that the last time you came on.
Well, I was born scoliotic, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like I just bought my own pen along so I could click the shit. You remember? Here, take all devices away from me.
I can't believe you remember. You remember clicking on the pen? That's hilarious.
Oh yeah. I'm a fidget, you know. So let me take everything off. So it's not good. Oh yeah, born slightly scoliotic, and then of course I banged myself up over the years, you know.
Of course. Do they do anything other than surgery for people with scoliosis?
They do, because I don't want to do surgery. Once you
Yeah.
start opening stuff up and fooling with it,
Yep.
there's no going back. You know?
Especially the back.
Yeah.
Back's a rough. I've never met anybody that had like fusions or anything where it turned out good.
No. And like Hippocrates, you know, the father of medicine, he said, in any ailment, look first to the spine. And it was like, he's kind of right. It all emanates from the core.
Well, if your back is fucked up, everything's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how strong your arms and legs are, if your back is fucked up, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's true. Your brain,
Yeah.
everything goes to hell.
Yeah, well, you're in pain all the time.
Yeah.
People with back problems, like, they can't think straight because you're always like, ugh. You know, it's always.
There's a gift to not thinking straight.
Tell me more. I want to know.
Well, it actually takes you down some pretty weird paths, you know. If you're happy all the time, I don't know. You don't have to strive to find thoughts to make yourself happy.
Right.
So it's like it's a good predisposition, I think.
I agree to that. Yeah, I think being happy all the time is it's kind of an unlikely scenario.
No, nobody is.
Yeah.
No, but we all want it. You notice we all yearn for it. There's this
Yeah.
that's the only thing we all want, right?
Right.
Is just happiness, little peace.
Well, it's also we're shown it like in television and movies.
Sure.
Like we're shown happiness as this goal. Like seek happiness.
Sure.
Should be happy all the time. Happy. Should never be upset.
No, well,
It's not realistic.
it's completely unrealistic. However, it's nice to have those little journeys through art where you can actually explore those things. You can explore your ids. You can explore happiness, and so you can experience the opposite. I look at situations around me, and I generally feel pretty grateful from what some people go through. I'm
Sure.
grateful. And everybody's got their crap, you know. But like this morning, for example, I would be surprised if my home is still there.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. The Palisades is on fire.
Yeah.
My friend Tom Segura, his house is gone.
Yeah.
It was where he used to live. He sold it, luckily.
Yeah, I have a
Moved
son.
on here.
He's in the sort of volunteer fire brigade, Milo. I call him the mayor of Malibu. And he's running around. And I asked him, how's things looking there, Milo? He says, not good, Pops. He says, your neighborhood. And he sent me a video of my neighborhood, and it's in flames. It looks like an inferno. So, yeah. Not
Do you think this will get you out of California finally?
Yeah, maybe, you know.
Where are you going to go?
Ooh, I don't know. I got a place in Costa Rica. I love it
Ooh,
there. Yeah.
Costa Rica's nice.
Yeah, I bought there many years ago. And
Yeah?
it's in a real nice spot. It's not too touristy or, dirt roads. So it's
Oh,
off the
nice.
beaten, off the beaten.
Does it feel safe out there?
Pretty safe. I think, look, no place is safe. I mean, you've got the Darien down there, you know.
What's
And it's kind of in the, what's the next country down? Panama.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this no man's land where the Colombians come through, and it's like, all kinds of dirty dealings in the jungle with, who knows, drugs and mules and,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it can be dangerous, and I've heard of danger happening there. You hear about somebody getting chopped up by a machete. And Costa Rica is actually a cool place because it never had a culture of death like a lot of the Central American countries did. They have a culture of death, Even Mexico, I mean, they used to, tear people's hearts out and pyramids,
Aztecs.
all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Aztecs were like the Romans, the Mayans were like the Greeks, but they all sort of dabbled in some stuff. Costa Rica always had a policy where they it was like the Switzerland of Central America. They emphasized education and health, and everybody's literate, and it's kind of interesting in that way. But it deals with its own little troubles,
Yeah. Well,
like every country, corrupt.
anywhere down in that part of the world
Mm-hmm.
is just like there's so much sketchy shit going on all around you.
Yeah, there can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, one has to be forewarned, forearmed, all that, So I have a nice place down there.
Yeah, I have some friends that have a place in Mexico, and I'm always like, don't you ever worry?
Yeah, I worked in Mexico a couple of times. I was down there, and it was in Veracruz, and apparently, people were rolling heads into bars and stuff like that, rival
great.
gangs and stuff, and they said, I'd go for a walk, and they'd say, you're crazy going for a walk. You'll get kidnapped. I said, I'm not going to get kidnapped. I'm the guy that pays. You're going to get kidnapped, and I'm not going to pay your ransom. So it's like, I never felt insecure in that way. And, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
If your number's up. I know I used to watch guys who do what I do for a living, and they'd have a phalanx of bodyguards around them, and like for security and stuff. And I used to have that stuff for a little while, but, it doesn't make any difference. You're going to be okay.
Okay.
Or not.
Or not, right?
Yeah.
Until you're not.
So you're not.
And everybody's going to be okay until they're not.
Yeah. I got in a dodgy situation one night, and I acted crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happened?
If you act crazy, everybody leaves you alone.
Especially if you are a little crazy.
little.
If they know that.
You're in a stress mode, so you actually get angry. If I feel like I'm threatened, I get angry, which is what happens. And then you get really in people's faces, and they think, this guy's crazy. But all the old cultures thought that, like when there were people traveling across the Great Plains to go west, if you acted nuts, they'd leave you alone because they didn't want your evil spirits.
Oh. So what happened with you?
Oh, nothing. They left me alone.
But where was this?
Oh, man, I was in a bad neighborhood. It was when I first got into L.A., and I was to go to dinner with Costa Gavras. He was a Greek director. I went the wrong way. And it was before they had, phones with
Right.
all that stuff. So
A Thomas guide.
it was the Thomas guide. Anyway, I wasn't guided well by Thomas. I ended up in the wrong place. And then my muffler fell off. And I was driving a Mercedes, pretty nice sporty car, And I thought, and I had the wife in the car. And I pulled into a side street. The sun was going down. And as I got out of the car, I thought, I got to fix this muffler. I can't just drag it. People started coming from houses. And they came up to me, and I saw them coming in the rearview mirror. And I jumped out of the car and got in their face. And I said, what the fuck do you want? Because I felt threatened.
Right.
And and the guy said, man, I'm just looking for some money. You got any money? So I was being mugged. And it was like, I thought, I'll think about it when I'm fucking finished, And I opened the trunk. And this is the weird part, Joe. I will never quite understand this. I opened the trunk to see what I could find to help me put the muffler back on. And sitting there, the only two things in the back of the trunk was a pair of wire cutters and a coat hanger. It's exactly what I needed, and I don't know why it was there. That's weird, isn't it?
That's very weird. So
Very
you used the coat hanger to wire up your muffler?
Yep. I cut a piece of wire, wired the muffler up. The whole time, more guys are coming.
Jesus
And
Christ.
they're standing behind me, and I'm feeling like, oh. And anyway, I get up, I finish the muffler, slam, and I'm acting mad and crazy the whole time. And they think, this guy's nuts. And I get back to the car, and my wife gives me a handful of cash. And I thought, what's this? She says, it's just 5s and 1s. Give it to him. So I threw it and drove off. But it was looking hairy for a minute. And you never know.
What year was this?
Oh, my God, back in the 90s.
Fitness isn't just about what you do in the gym, it's also about your nutrition. But even with the best diet, some nutrients can be hard to get, and AG1 can help fill those gaps. AG1 delivers optimal amounts of nutrients in forms that help your body perform. AG1 makes foundational nutrition easy because there aren't a million different pills and capsules you have to keep track of. It's just one scoop mixed in water. It's such an easy routine to keep in the mornings. Ingredients in AG1 are selected for absorption, nutrient density, and potency, and are intentionally picked to work in sync with the whole formula for optimal impact. They are seriously committed to quality. AG1 is tested for hundreds of contaminants and impurities, and they're constantly reformulating their recipe to dial it in. This is all part of why I've partnered with AG1 for years. So get started with AG1 this holiday season and get a free bottle of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/Joe Rogan. That's a $76 value gift for free if you go to drinkag1.com/Joe Rogan. Seriously, get on this. So things are more dangerous now.
I think they are.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, we were just talking about the wildfire situation and how crazy it is that they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless.
Yeah.
And what did they spend on preventing these wildfires?
Zero.
Not zip.
Zip. And in 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so it's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. Mm-hmm. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And like, you're out of your fucking mind, dude. You've ruined this state. Like, personally ruined it.
Well, it's the same team that was up in San Francisco, and they came down to L.A., and they're doing what they did in San Francisco. And San Francisco's kind of like apocalyptic now,
Yeah.
I went there, and it's just like people, homeless. It's a mess.
It's just unbelievable that society can crumble that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is unbelievable.
It doesn't take long.
No.
Yeah. I read a book once by Jared Diamond called Collapse. Have you ever read that book?
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy, right? It says all the things you need for a civilization to cave in and collapse. And a lot of the things are present. All those earmarks, the precursors of a collapse, they're present in our time. So it's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
And we're no smarter than our grandparents, I don't think.
Well, that brings me to one of my favorite movies of yours, is Apocalypto.
Oh, yeah.
When the Mayans were running things, like, who could have ever thought when they had such an incredibly sophisticated society, unbelievable construction, like the stuff that they had built, that one day you would just walk through there and there's nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing and nobody.
In fact, there's something, because it's interesting. Somebody was flying by what they thought was a volcano in the 30s, some buzzboy. And he thought, hey, somebody built that. Wait a minute, there's 4 by 8 foot bricks. That's man-made. And it is literally the biggest pyramid in the world. It's bigger than the ones in Egypt, and it's in Guatemala.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. Yeah, it's a recent discovery, right?
Well, not that recent. I was maybe 20 years ago. I visited. I went down there with the archaeologist, a guy named Richard Hansen, who's from Idaho or someplace. And he's down there with his family. He's been working tirelessly for like 30 years trying to extract this pre-classic city from the jungle. And there's not a bunch of tourists. All the pyramids in Tikal would fit inside the one big pyramid in El Mirador.
Really?
Yeah. It's a monster. And so that tells you that the pre-classic civilization was bigger and grander and more sophisticated than the civilizations that came after it.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Well, it is unbelievable how, like, when you the accounts of like people that visited Mexico and visited the Aztecs, like what the markets looked like and how insane it was and how gorgeous it was, and then just disease.
Yeah, disease, or I don't know if it was disease or what. I think the people were pretty dissatisfied. It would have been hard for Cortez, with his limited numbers, to actually take over a civilization like that unless they kind of happened upon a civilization that was pretty dissatisfied with the way things were going.
Yeah.
So I think they had people to help them sort of rebel.
sure. When you're making a movie like Apocalypto, I mean, that's a crazy undertaking. You're making an entire movie where there's no English in it at all, and it's a blockbuster.
Yeah, it's cool. It was fun.
That's one of the best movies, man. It's a fucking great movie.
Well, because I think it's scary because nobody's speaking your language. And you're looking at indigenous peoples and because they're not speaking your language, you totally kind of buy it. And you can buy the horror and the primal nature of the story you want to tell. And really, it's just a series of fears, one after the other, being chased by, scary guys or eaten by wild animals or, hit by blowgun. It's all like a series of these things. But I think basically what I was doing was trying to talk about our time now and the civilization that we live in and how close are we to collapse and what are the things that lead to collapse. It's environmental stuff. It's human sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that.
Kinda.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
We just dress it up.
Yep.
When you find out medications are killing people and they keep prescribing them and they do it for money, that's kind of sacrifice. When
It
you
is.
find out that wars are irresponsible,
They're not just wars.
not just,
No.
they're for money.
We send our young people over there to
Yeah.
die, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for not. I mean,
Yeah.
I love this. I love the warrior. I do. I love the warrior, but I hate the war.
Yeah.
And
Well, we hate an unjust war.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a mess. But the human sacrifice aspect is alive and well in our society, I think.
It really is. It's just dressed up in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, rhetoric around it. But they've always been able to justify it. Like in Apocalypto, it was like, yeah, so the crops will be better. Hey, we'll just,
Yeah, kill a few people.
Yeah. And then I had all these people come out of the woodwork. Hey, we're archaeologists and scientists, and that never happened. So there's this revisionism about it, too, that it didn't happen. But there are accounts from the time where, yes, people did witness these things. And of course, I had a bunch of battery of archaeologists and scientists and professors on my own that say, yeah, well, this stuff did happen. And here's the the depictions of it in paintings and images, and so it's like, it did happen. So,
When you set out to make a movie like that, like, first of all, what brings you to that? Did you get the script first? Like, what was it an idea that you had in your head?
it was it just came from in here, and I was working on something, and a buddy of mine said, "So what do you want to do next?" I said, man, I want to direct something, and I always want to direct a chase film. He said, "What kind of chase?" I said, "A foot chase." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, people chasing you. I mean, there's something kind of primal and scary about a foot chase." And I think in order to have a foot chase, you can't have a society where there's any kind of cars or anything like that. Otherwise, you have a car chase. But I want to film a foot chase like it's a car chase. And he said, "Oh." I said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I'm thinking if you go back before Columbus discovered America, and it's like people assume that Columbus discovered America and then life began." I said, "I want to know what was happening right before he got there. And I said, so I had this idea that you see all this stuff going on and there's no time period on it, and then all of a sudden you date it by the arrival of Europeans. And I thought it's kind of like the Rod Serling, Planet of the Apes ending.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it's kind of a cool ending. And he said, "Oh, wow." And he said, "Where do you think Columbus landed?" I said, "Why not? Let's look." So I looked up, and the first peoples he encountered were Mayan trading canoes off the coast of Honduras. And I thought, cool, what was happening in Honduras, And you look at these towns and pyramids and temples and stuff at that time. And then the story was born from there. And, of course, then we read the book by Jared Diamond, Collapse. I read the Mayan Bible, the Popol Vuh, and, tried to delve into what they believed and what their civilization was like. And they had concepts, as we do, of heaven and hell, of punishment or reward, It was a little different, quite a bit different, actually. In fact, when I went down to the archaeological sites at El Mirador, they dug something up. And it was like, well, what is it? And they said, we don't know. there was this carved image in the stone of this Mayan warrior drinking, and he had an ear spool, and it was like, So they dug further and further, and it went like 26 meters down, and it was the entire story of the Popol Vuh, of the twins going into hell and getting their father's head and swimming back, and it's this crazy story, and it kind of dated that book because I think it was almost 3,000 years old. This mural, this carving, so it tells you that the story is pretty old. And they thought initially it was probably back in the 1300s, but this confirmed that it was at least 2,600 years old, something like
wow.
that. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. That to be there when they're digging that stuff up is mind-blowing.
Well, they're missing so much of the Mayan history. It's very interesting. You want some coffee?
I want some water.
That's water right there.
Water.
They're missing so much of the Mayan history, because everybody's gone. But one of you ever see the very bizarre carving where it looks like there's a guy who's sitting in a cockpit of a spaceship,
Yes.
like looking through some sort of an eye thing?
Yeah, they got some weird stuff. It's like
Weird.
Yeah.
Where there's fire underneath the chair. Like, what is that?
they got dudes that look like Europeans. They have these guys with red beards and helmets and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like these Phoenician guys who probably traveled over there early on.
Yeah.
Probably maybe in the 6th century or something like that. So it wasn't that long a boat ride. So they probably went over there and made contact, and they thought they were gods or something, and then they went away again. And they said, well, wait for them to come back. And, of course, they did come back. But it didn't work out the same.
No.
No.
No. Well, there's so many accounts of, people visiting, especially when you get into the Amazon.
Sure. Oh, I don't know about the Amazon.
Oh, my God.
Tell me about that.
Well, first of all, the Amazon used to be filled with people.
Yeah.
And most of the Amazon is man-made. The jungle in the Amazon
I
is
didn't know this.
agriculture.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The jungle in the Amazon, they didn't even know this until fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
And they now know from flying over, they use LiDAR, which is this light
Yes, I
emitting
know,
radar.
yeah.
So when they use this laser radar shit, when they fly over it, they're finding all these grids and pathways and cities in the jungle. So the jungle had consumed all of these cities. I think there was millions and millions of people living in the Amazon.
Yeah.
And that Europeans came over, diseases,
Yeah.
everybody dies, jungle consumes the city. People come back 200 years later looking for it, like the lost city of Z,
Yeah.
like that story.
You're right, yeah.
They go back to look, and there's nothing left.
Yeah. Guns, germs, and steel.
Yeah.
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 Great. Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. I'll have to look into that.
And we're going through all those things right now: guns, germs, and steel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. Germs.
Yeah.
Oh, God. The germs. I'm just on the tail end of some hideous flu that was going. I don't know if
Did you get
got
the
it.
H5N1 or whatever the fuck it is?
I don't know what the hell. Yeah, I've had that. That was the swine thing. I had swine flu one time.
Did you have that in 2009?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was around then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an epidemic, a pandemic, whatever you want to call it, but it didn't have the same sort of press releases
Yeah.
that COVID did.
Sure. I got the swine flu. I acted more like a pig. It was terrible. Terrible. Wallowing in my own mud.
So I like Flight Risk. It's a fun movie.
Oh, it's a whole, it's a hoot. I mean, I think the first thing you got to do with any film, and I think it's incumbent upon all directors, artists, to entertain first, in some fashion. Even if it's a heavy story, you have to find some aspect of it that entertains. And I think this, for entertainment's sake, is just fun, and it's quick. I'm not subjecting you to 4 hours of like watching Autism Dry.
Right.
It's like it's 85, 90 minutes.
Yeah,
and you're
it's a
out.
good time.
Yeah, and Mark is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, he's great in it. He plays a good psycho.
Oh, he's a psychopath. Mark's got a good dark side. There's some dark stuff there that he was able to draw from, and every now and then he'd let it out. I can't even repeat some of the stuff he'd say. In fact, we had to cut most of it out. It was like really sick, but we hint at it. Yeah. Anyway,
When you make a movie now, I mean, you've had such a career.
Yeah.
When you make a movie now, like what motivates you at this point in your life? Like how do you decide? Let's hit the green light on this one.
yeah, there are things that speak to me, and they speak for a long time. It's I remember when I was a kid in high school, I was studying English, And they said, well, where did the English language come from? And they talked about, wow, it came from this old guttural German, Old Norse that the Vikings brought across. And I was thinking, well, that's cool, the Vikings, you know. And then immediately I start thinking, man, somebody should I want to make a film about Vikings, and they only speak in Old Norse, because if they say if they speak English all of a sudden,
Right.
you're not buying it. But
Right,
if they're
right,
speaking
right.
some guttural language,
Yeah.
you're sort of scared by them, and it's like, that's scary to me. And then I said to myself, I'm 17 years old. Why am I thinking about making films about Vikings? I don't know anything about making films and not much about Vikings. So why the hell am I even thinking about that? But that was something that was early on, was like a drive, I guess, to sort of depict things like that. So I did films in other languages, in Mayan and in Aramaic and in Latin.
Yes.
You know. So,
Yeah.
And there's a power to that. I noticed when I was young, I used to go and watch a lot of foreign films. And I watched French movies, right? Or German or whatever they were, Spanish. I'd watch them and I'd think, wow, the acting's great in those. And it seemed better because of the subtitles. Because
Right. Yeah, yeah.
more believable somehow. I don't know.
Right, because you're not hearing insincerity in their voice because you don't even understand what they're saying.
No.
Yeah, you just feel the emotions in the words.
And it also it has to take your attention, because you have to do another function. You have to read,
Yeah.
which is another thing that sort of maybe blinds you to the flaws in the filmmaking, perhaps. So, hey, it's a great trick.
Yeah.
It's
Well, it's
obfuscation.
There's a thing about reading it while you're watching it. It's like an added element of concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Like subtitled movies, you feel like you're a smarter person watching a movie where you're reading it as well.
Yeah. And there's something about the written word that's like, it's a pretty interesting thing to throw into the mix. I know when I first started it was kind of confusing, but then I got really good at it. And I think, especially with something like The Passion that I did, the written word was very important, because it was, you got all those books, the Bible, you've got the different Gospels and stuff that people are quite familiar with. Half the time, they didn't even need to read the subtitles. They could look at it and know what was going on.
Playoffs. We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Rogan. That's code Rogan for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
That was a crazy movie because it was a great movie, but
Yeah.
it seemed like there was resistance to that movie,
Oh, yeah. No, there was...
which I thought was very strange. There was like Hollywood resistance to that movie. Like people didn't like that you were making it. It seemed
No.
like.
Yeah, there was a lot of opposition to it. And I don't know. I think if you ever hit on that subject matter, you're going to get people going, because
Of course.
it's big subject matter, and it's like, and my contention is, when I was making it, it was like, you're making this film, and the idea was that we're all responsible for this, that his sacrifice was for all mankind, and that for all our ills and all the things in our fallen nature, it was a redemption. So, and I believe that, I actually am. I was born into a Catholic family. I'm very Christian in my beliefs, So I do actually believe this stuff to the full. So depicting that was an honor, but it was also, you got the daylights beat out of you for it.
Yeah, because there's resistance, first of all, from secular Hollywood, where for whatever reason, Christianity is the one religion that you're allowed to disparage.
Yeah.
Christianity is the one religion where people, all these progressive, open-minded, leftist people, they'll embrace all these different religions until it comes to Christianity. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, that represents like white male, whatever it represents, colonialism, whatever it represents, it's negative.
Yeah, sure. It's gotten a bad rap, and people do feel free to beat up on it. Mm-hmm. Even I do when I see it's like when it's not fair or when I
Right.
think it's off.
Right.
Like when they appoint some cardinal in some diocese and he's been covering up for like people who are child molesters.
Yes.
Or, like Theodore McCarrick or Cardinal Wuerl or those kind of guys. I mean,
Or the Pope,
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm not-
Benedict.
Oh, not Benny. Well, he was covering up, but like,
Yeah.
so is the guy now.
Is he really?
Well, yeah. It's not great.
I thought he was like the more progressive Pope.
Oh, he's very progressive, yes,
But he's covering up for stuff as well. Well, they all are. I mean, it's a dark institution in a lot of ways because it's history.
well, the institution, it was instituted by Christ, but that doesn't mean that it can't be flawed. And there's a school of thought that says it isn't what it purports to be anymore. It's moved away from what it was intended to be and what it is. Almost there's a guy called Bishop Vigano who says it's a counterfeit parallel church, and it's running an entirely different religion. I actually don't adhere to a post-conciliar church. I adhere.
Can you define what that means?
Okay. There was an event that happened in the 60s. First, there was an event in the Vatican where they elected John the 23rd Pope, right, in 1958. I was 2 years old, right? He was elected, and there was a very funny thing that happened in the conclave. Usually there's white and black smoke that goes out of the chimneys to tell you, we have a pope, habemus papam, and the white smoke came out. And everybody cheered, and they went crazy. And then about a half an hour later, black smoke came out. That never in history has that happened, that the white smoke came out, and then the black smoke came
So
out.
white smoke means we found a new pope. Black smoke means no pope.
That's right. They'd have votes, or there'd be one reason or another. They'd have a round in the conclave, and black smoke would come out many times maybe. Maybe it would take 2 weeks. But never was it known that white smoke came out, then black smoke came out.
So what was the scenario?
That somebody was elected, and that maybe something else happened, and he was pushed aside and someone else was put in. So it was
Power struggle.
some kind of power struggle. And, of course, the man who came out was a man called Angelo Roncalli, and he was John the 23rd. Now, it's interesting to note that never had a pope taken the name of another pope ever before in history. But this man took the name of a known anti-pope from the 15th century that Cosimo de' Medici put in there as his own man. I'll get you in the chair, and then everything will be rosy. Everything will go good for business, whatever he was putting him in there for, some corrupt reason. But and there have been corrupt men in that place before. I mean, there's Alexander VI and Julius II and Sixtus IV. I mean, some of these guys are, they're not saints. So he took the name of a known anti-pope from the 5th century who actually said, yes, I'm an anti-pope. Sorry, I'm not the right guy, because there was more than one, and he confessed to being, and he wanted to, square things with the Almighty, I guess, so he confessed to being an anti-pope. And so he took the same name as that guy, John the 23rd. So it's interesting, don't you think? I mean, why would he do that?
Well, whenever you have that kind of power, like I'm sure you've been to the Vatican, right?
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Yes, it's huge.
It's so crazy. When you're walking around, you see just the massive amount, just the dollar value in the art that they possess.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
It's crazy. Yeah. And, it's a very small country. It's a country.
Yeah,
I
it's a
guess.
country inside of a small city.
Yeah.
Because Rome's not the biggest city.
No.
And then it's got a country inside the city
Yeah.
with walls around it.
Sure.
And you can't extradite people.
Yeah. Pretty weird.
How convenient.
Yeah. Even Ratzinger, He didn't drive from the Vatican to the other place. He flew.
Ooh.
And it was only a little while, because who knows why? I don't know.
Well, he was wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had done, one of the things that he had done was he had moved a priest that had molested 100 kids, and he moved him to some new place where he molested deaf kids.
Yeah, yeah. Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's the dirtiest, most evil practice that the Catholic Church has been accused of.
I think so, and many institutions as well.
Yeah.
But that is a very bad one, and I think it's all part and parcel of the same corruption that crept in. And when you asked what's the difference between pre-Vatican II, so Vatican II happened, and of course they took the church and they reformed it, and they changed things in it. And it didn't necessarily agree with everything that went before it.
Mm.
And up to that point, yeah, you could find it agreed with itself. But all of a sudden, you got something else, to the point where now, I mean, we got a pope that brought a South American idol into the church to worship.
Really?
He did, the Pachamama. He bought the South American, and he got.
I don't know what that is.
It's kind of like a South American god, Pachamama.
Why would he do that?
Good question, but he did.
Did he have an explanation for why he did it?
Yeah, it's kind of a weasel-worded thing of like, oh, all religions are just as good as one another. But if that's his contention,
He shouldn't be the Pope.
no. I mean,
How can you be the Pope if you say all religions are just as good?
Yeah, we all worship. So yeah, there's a Pachamama. There you go.
So he brought that in.
Yeah, into the Vatican. Then the hierarchy even worshipped. They had a ceremony around it outside.
What?
Well, that constitutes apostasy.
Yeah.
Joe. That's an apostasy
Yeah.
move. All right.
Worshipping false gods.
Yeah, that's number one on the Mosaic hit list. you know.
Yeah.
Moses goes up on the mountain. He comes back down. People are worshiping a golden calf.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. And for me, that's a departure from that's called apostasy.
Right.
It's a falling away from it. And the very nature of apostasy means that you have to be part of it to fall away from it. Mm-hmm. So it's an inside job.
Ah.
So
what do you think there's a motive behind these things?
I don't think probably.
What do you think it is?
I don't know, but it isn't good. I think we're looking at a world where, and this is in the next film I'm going to do. I'm going to try and tackle this question: that there are big realms, spiritual realms. There's good, there's evil, and they are slugging it out for the souls of mankind. And my question is, why are we even important? Little old flawed humanity. Why are we important in that process where the big realms are slugging it out over us? And I think there's bigger things at play here. And institutions that purport to touch on the divine are necessarily going to be affected by that slugfest that's going on between good and evil.
Right.
And
sometimes good gives up ground.
yeah, and maybe not on purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some deception involved or self-deception.
Right. Co-opted.
Like every morning when I wake up, I actually pray that I don't deceive myself. Because it's like, your mind is a very funny place. I mean, I've always said, it's your second thought and your first action that you're responsible for. Your first thought, throw it away,
Right. But upon consideration,
Yeah.
the second thought is what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
That's the difference between first degree and second degree murder,
There you go.
right? Right?
There you
It's
go.
first degree, like, I'm plotting this out. And we take that into consideration when we sentence people.
Sure.
Like, if you're a person who you're all of a sudden you're in a fight with a guy, you didn't expect it, and you stab him and kill him, second degree murder.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I'm going to kill this motherfucker, I'm going to
Yeah.
find out where he is,
Yep.
and I'm going to go get him, first degree.
Sure. I
That's-
planned a
that's
lot of
worse.
murders in my life,
Yeah, in your
we
head.
all have. Yeah, in your head. You plan the murder and you think, well, that's not a very good idea. But I think I could get away with it.
Right. There's the second thought. Yeah. That is interesting that we take that into consideration.
Yeah.
That we do. Like, if you've had time to think about it, you're a different kind of person than person acts in the act
Sure.
Yeah.
You're in your animal
act of
brain.
passion. Yes.
And I found this out. I actually spent a long time in my animal brain, which is a very horrible place to be. And
When you say that, what do you mean by you've spent a long time in your animal brain?
you're in flight or fight
Right.
all the time. You don't even sleep. It's like really not a good place to be. And if anybody looks at you the wrong way, you want to bite them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say and do things that are socially unacceptable. And, I went and got a brain scan by this guy called Daniel Amen, who's this brain guy. He's against all psych meds and stuff, but he thinks like, let me have a look at your brain. And he put a radioactive tracer in me
Whoa.
and to photograph my brain.
Right,
He works with a lot
MRI,
of,
right?
Yeah, he works with a lot of football players and guys who've
Okay.
had brain injuries. Man, it's thirsty in here. But, so he looked at my brain and he was like, and he opens the file and I'm in there with the guy and he looks up and he goes, "Are you okay?" And he goes, first he went like this. And I said, "What?" And he went, "Are you okay?" Like that. And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And he came over and he sat next to me, but very slowly and cautiously. And he says, "No, you're not." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You got the worst case of PTSD I've ever seen." And I said, "You mean like even worse than guys in war and shit like that?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he says, "You're not okay."
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, I started to well up, like, no, I'm not. It's like,
Oh, boy.
and it was, he had a very miraculous and great remedy for it, which was to eat a bunch of fish oil, vitamin B complex, and get into a hyperbaric chamber for 40 sessions. But make sure you do at least 2 or 3 a week.
Oh.
It fixed my head.
Really?
Yeah, it got me out of that wacky place,
So it was something to do with nutrition and oxygen and
Yeah. And your brain is neuroplasticity. He explained neuroplasticity to me and how, okay, you could get brain damage and like holes in your head and all, concussion. I used to play rugby. And I've been knocked out on the field a couple of times,
that explains a lot. Yeah.
And so it actually, you can actually heal the holes in your head. It looked like Swiss cheese in there. It's like horrible. There's a lot of these football players get like that too. The poor guys, they get depressed and they get,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah.
Hormonal imbalance, pituitary glands fucked up.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
They're not-
absolutely.
not producing testosterone or human growth hormone correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah, depression, low energy,
Yep.
irritability.
Irritability, you want to kill somebody, it's like terrible
Yeah.
thing, and that's just not socially acceptable. Plus, I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
So-
Well, the rugby, I bet that's a giant factor.
Yeah, I played from like 13 to probably in my late teens, and you get knocked around a little
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
bit. No helmet, no.
Well, people don't realize, like, even shots to the chest cause brain damage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what people are realizing now.
Yeah, sure. And like I'm addicted to the UFC, right? I love it. But I know that these guys are, I feel kind of sorry for them.
I do as well. Yeah.
And one of the guys, I knew one of the guys fairly well. And usually I'm pretty immune to but he was in there and he was fighting against Volkanovski. It was Brian Ortega. And he was getting his ass handed to him in one fight. He almost got him a couple of times, but
Yeah, I almost submitted him twice.
yeah, I know. But because I knew Brian, it was like my son was in there.
Right.
I almost started crying. I was
Yeah.
and it got to me. I was like, I should probably feel like this about all these guys, but I don't know them as well.
It becomes a problem for me when I'm friends with a guy, and
Yep.
then also I see when they're on the tail end of their career and they can't take shots anymore. And then when you talk to them, you recognize the speech patterns are slurring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met Muhammad Ali when he was in a chair,
Oof.
and man, I don't know if I could even tell this story. What he said was so funny, but he was still in there, and he was still a little devil, and he was like, and he was still fucking with people.
Of course.
But it was like, I can't tell this story.
You can't?
No, man.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Footnote it. Tell me later.
I'll tell you later. It's funny. But it was my assistant, is what he said to my assistant. It was like so funny. And then he said it, and we all were like, whoa. And then I looked at him and he was just laughing. He was laughing his ass off. So he was still all in there, but it was hard. I guess he had the damage of being punched.
Yeah, trauma-related Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
Very common for
Oh
fighters.
my God. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good.
No.
I got knocked out when I in a fight when I was like 20, and it was like knocked out, like out, and it was I woke up in the hospital. Not good.
No. Well, a few of those will explain a lot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And we didn't know that, back then. That's why it always drives me crazy in a movie when someone gets hit over the head with a gun and knocked out, and then 5 minutes later they're fighting and they're fine. It's
Or
like,
shot in the
Yeah.
arm. They kill you. That always makes me laugh too. But we used to do it.
well, you
still
kind of
do.
have to, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
part of the whole thing of telling a movie. You got to.
Sure. I
It's
mean,
suspension of disbelief.
Michelle Docker even brains Mark Wahlberg with a fire extinguisher
Yeah.
at one point. And it's
Yeah.
he's back.
Brains him, shoots him.
Oh yeah,
It's
he's a
lot.
cockroach. You can't kill him. It takes a lot more. You'll find out.
Yeah. But people used to think that concussions are just something you recover from. Like, no big deal. You get a
Yeah.
concussion, take a break for a little while, you'll be fine. You might not be fine.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
I got a concussion at my daughter's wedding. This is really weird. Okay, so she's getting married a great guy. They got a great family, and a buddy of mine from Australia comes to the wedding, and he goes, he comes up, and I go to hug him, and he ducks down, and he comes up, and he puts his shoulder into the point of my chin. The guy weighs 240, and he puts his shoulder into the point of my chin and knocks me the fuck out.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm like, and like for the next 4 months, I'm messed up. I have to get like a guy to work cranial, sacral, fix me up and stuff like that. It
Jesus,
really messed me
fucking
up.
Australians.
Yeah, there you go.
Wild folk.
Worse than Germans, yeah.
They're just wild ex-prisoners.
Yeah. Wild. Prisoner of Mother England,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway.
So this story that you want to tell about good and evil, like, do you have a script, or is it just a thing in your head? What is it?
Yeah, it's the resurrection story, but it's not linear, because you can't really. It's hard to understand, so it's got to be put in a framework where you answer a few other questions as well, and you have to juxtapose the event itself against everything else, so that it makes some kind of sense in a bigger picture, which is a hard thing to do. And it took my brother and I and a guy called Randall Wallace, plus my brother and I, took us 6-7 years to write it.
So are you doing this with historians as well? Are you trying to make it?
Yeah, historical stuff. Well, I regard the Gospels as history. It's verifiable history. Some people say, "Oh, it's a fairy tale." He never existed, but he did. And there are other accounts, verifiable historical accounts outside the biblical ones, that also bear this up, that yes, he did exist. And the other aspect of that is that all the evangelists, the apostles who went out there, every single one of those guys died rather than deny their belief. And nobody dies for a lie. Nobody.
Right.
So that's part of what I'm doing. It's like showing nobody dies for a lie.
Yeah. Well, the resurrection is the one that is the most difficult for people to swallow.
Yes.
That's the one that requires the most faith.
The most faith and the most belief. Yeah, resurrection.
Yeah.
Who gets back up 3 days later after he gets murdered in public? Who gets back up under his own power? Buddha didn't do that shit.
Right.
So.
You believe that was a real event?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What brought you to that belief? Is this something that you've always had, or is it something you studied it and you've come to this conclusion because of the historical accounts? And
Yes. I think as a child, one accepts things on faith because, you're raised by people who are nice to you and they believe it. And my dad was a pretty smart guy. He was like Mensa smart, like real smart. Like back in 1968, he won Jeopardy, right? And then
Really?
And then they brought all the Jeopardy winners back, and he played all the winners, and he beat all of them too. So he had a mind like a steel trap. And his memory was practically photographic. My memory is pornographic, but it's like his was like, I don't have that kind of mind.
Right.
But I'm more like, he did math, and I can't add. But so as a child, you learn these things and you accept them on faith. And I still have that faith, but as I got older, I came to it through intellect and through reading and putting things together in accounts, and then occurrences like in my own life. I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention, there's some discussion and debate about it, but they used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
Yeah, they said no, it's back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating because it's not paint. It's not. They don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available.
It wasn't. No.
A couple thousand years ago.
An intense light. I mean, atomic. To leave almost like a photographic imprint on a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
And
it's wild. Pull that up. Pull the Shroud of Turin up.
Oh, yeah.
It's wild to look at because it's so interesting.
Oh, yeah. And you can see it that it depicts a first century Hebrew male because the hairstyle was from the first century, and a Hebrew hairstyle, that he was about 6 feet tall, that he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified. That's
Yeah,
it there.
the one on the left the one on the right is just like an artistic rendition.
AI recreation.
That's the face.
Yeah, click on that one. The face. Yeah, that's good enough. Get
Yeah.
that large. That's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Yeah. Scourged, beaten.
Yeah.
The wounds on the thorns, the hands, the
Mm-hmm.
feet, and the scourging, and the hairstyle was from the first century, and the pollens that they found in the cloth were from that region.
Yeah.
Also, the weave was a first century weave that was typical, and another guy, an archaeologist who I knew, who actually translated the Passion into Aramaic, told me that if you look close, you can see the image of a Tiberius coin marks on the eyes. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. I've never actually checked that, but that there's images of Tiberius on the coin.
Because they would put the coins over the eyes.
Yeah. So that would date it. But they have now verified that it does actually go back to that time period. For a while, they were testing pieces that had been repaired in the 13th
Right.
century or,
Right.
so.
What is the latest on that, Jamie? Can you see, like,
I was trying to get that. I have 2 different articles from within the last 6 months saying
the
opposite
Smithsonian
things.
guy.
So
Yeah,
I was gonna
opposite. Of course.
dig into which one sounded the most accurate.
well, it's such a crazy thing to even try to verify. Like, what are you saying? You're saying that this is really the shroud that Jesus was covered in? So you're saying Jesus historically absolutely did exist, and we think that this is the shroud that covered him. That alone, people, incredulity, people's immediately their hackles raise, like, wait a minute, and they just instead of like looking at it objectively, they almost always want to look at it from a point of view of disproving it immediately,
Yes, of
dismissing it immediately.
But that's that's science, isn't it? You have to sort of you play the devil's advocate, and that's okay. Go for it.
Are you aware of Graham Hancock?
Oh no.
Graham Hancock is he's sort of a historian that has a very he's got a series on Netflix. He's a fascinating guy, and his career started because he was investigating these accounts in Ethiopia of the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
And that they believe the Ark of the Covenant is in this one church that's protected by all these monks that wind up getting cataracts and radiation disease and sickness. And they think that it's because they're protecting this Ark of the Covenant, this actual thing, that it's an actual physical thing that's there.
And if you touch it, you get zapped.
Yeah, and that even being in its presence fucks these people up.
Maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's got to be someplace, right? They buried it. They lost track of it.
Yeah.
But, man, it used to be. And all the stories are, if you even touched it, you fall over, because it was constructed electrically somehow.
Yeah, like, what is that? What's in there?
Well,
why is it giving people cancer if they're really protecting it?
I think it's the actual structure of the container it's in that is the problem. That's my thought on it. I could be wrong. But I think inside it, they have things from like when Moses was like manna and, stuff like that they managed to keep from, like, for example, they say that that Golgotha, the place where the crucifixion happened, it's called Golgotha, the place of the skull, because that's where Adam's head is buried.
Really?
Yes, and that it's also perhaps the same place. And it tells you it's kind of in the same area where Abraham almost sacrifices Isaac.
Oh.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's and the cross, when in any artistic depiction, at the foot of the cross, underneath it is the skull, representing the skull of Adam.
Huh.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
That's the skull of Adam, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Place of the skull, memory, myth, in the chapel of Adam.
What did you find on the Shroud of Turin, Jamie?
Both those articles just asked like one person, like one researcher thought it was, another researcher based off of their research said it wasn't.
Can you put it to the one that thought it was?
So the one who thought it was is like a
Does date to the
nuclear
time of
researcher.
Jesus. A nuclear researcher, Jesus
The
Christ.
other one was like a AI artist from Brazil.
Yeah.
So I don't know who has the most.
So it says, study
Skin
published in the
game.
journal Heritage. The authors conducted dating work on a sample from the shroud, coming to the conclusion that it may be a 2,000-year-old relic. The shroud, which has long been the subject of intense scrutiny, features a faint image of a man some believe is the body of Jesus miraculously imprinted onto the cloth, while the latest study does not discuss the question of whether or not the artifact was indeed Jesus' burial shroud. Specifically, the authors did find its age is roughly consistent with his time. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, isn't the Smithsonian guy all for it? I don't know. Maybe that's him. I don't know. But, yeah. There's for and against. There's always been.
Yeah, always. But it's just...
But the image is like, come
Yeah,
on.
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Whatever it is pretty crazy. And the fact that they don't know how they made it is also pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's not a painting.
Nope.
And then not exactly sure how
No.
it even came about.
Yeah. It had to have been some kind of intense light.
Well, the thought was that even trying to replicate something like that today would be incredibly difficult to do.
Sure. It's like an X-ray vision. You know?
Yeah.
It's like an X-ray. That's what you really see it in the negative only.
Right.
You know. It's
Right.
crazy.
It's like a negative. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I buy it, but that's not the only reason I buy it. I mean, I think there's other logical reasons why I believe. So,
Like what are those?
oh, okay. Stuff that happens in your own life. The results you get from actually appealing to a power greater than yourself, And, I mean, I don't think it's any secret. I am flawed in the fact that I am, by nature, born an alcoholic, right? I did drugs, I did alcohol, so... and there was nothing that could stop me from doing that. Nothing. So I was really kind of you're on a downhill run. So I regard the fact that I was able to appeal to something greater than myself to help me and actually stop me doing that. I think that's a miracle. It is. For me, it is. And for many. So...
Well, that is the thing about AA, right? It's a part of the whole process is appealing to a higher power.
Sure. It's a
And-
spiritual program.
yeah.
Because you're suffering your spiritual malady,
Yeah.
So it's a spiritual cure. And that's the essence, I think, of why it works. Because you can't explain it otherwise. I mean, you kind of can, but I think what you're being asked to do is to think about other people and other things more than yourself, because it's kind of an ego disease.
Yeah.
So if you
That is the problem with addiction, right? It's very narcissistic.
very
Because you're
narcissistic,
constantly thinking about yourself and what you need. I need a drink. I need a bump. I need I need something.
sure, I need
Yeah.
and no matter what you need, it's never going to be enough.
Right.
So you actually have to appeal to something outside that you consider bigger and better than yourself, which instantly kind of pushes you more in the direction of humility
Yes.
because you're not the center of the universe anymore.
Right.
And that you can't do it. And the first step in any of that sort of stuff is accepting that you are powerless over it. That's the most powerful step you can do, is that you're powerless. When you realize that, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
there's fuck all I can do about this. I have to appeal to something better than me. And that to me is a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very uniquely human thing, the ability to course correct, and also just the concept of addiction in the first place.
Sure.
It's a very uniquely human thing that we all know that there's dark roads our mind can go down, and then we wonder, like, what is the purpose of these dark thoughts? What is the purpose of this destructive behavior that we're all prone to in some way, shape, or form?
What is the purpose of everything?
Yeah.
I mean, like, really,
Right.
I mean, why am I here? What's the meaning of this?
Yeah.
And I'm looking for purpose, and what is it we're here for? I think, we have to leave some stuff, but you have to leave some good stuff. You can leave plenty of bad stuff, and it's and we're all prone that way. I often think about, the human race as a whole. You think about guys like, Stalin or Hitler or Chairman Mao, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be sharing a cell in the afterlife with those guys.
Right.
I don't know where I'll be on the ladder, but
Depends on how you end up, right?
well, that's it.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, and we're allowed to make mistakes, and we do. We are so flawed, and I'm more flawed than anyone, But it's something that I think, and it's pretty safe to say I'm in the third act now. You're in act 2, right? Gesundheit. But I'm in the third act, man. So you have to think about the other side. You have
Yeah.
to think about what comes next. Is there a next? Yes, there is. I believe there is. And I think it's depends on how you live now. And the beauty of believing is that even for your transgressions, you can be forgiven. And you can be redeemed. But it's all up here,
Right. It's the true acceptance and understanding of what you've done and what you should do.
Sure. You have to
And
look
how-
at yourself honestly.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely honestly. You have to be able to accuse yourself and understand that it's a great deal of mercy involved in the fact that I believe that God sent his son down to tell us, okay, I'm going to ransom you people from your fallen nature, and I'll give you a roadmap on how to do it. And people do it. There's even people that do it that I've never even heard of it. Some guy in the jungle someplace, I'm sure.
Right.
Because the Creator is above the law. I mean, it's an interesting fact to note that the first canonized saint, you know who it was?
No.
The first ever confirmed canonization as a saint was Dismas. You know who Dismas was?
No.
He was the thief on the cross next to Jesus.
Oh.
And he says to him, you're going to be okay. This day, you'll be with me. Unbaptized, criminal, all that stuff. So
Wow.
the lawmaker is above the law. So there's a lot of mercy.
What about people that never experience Christianity? What about the
That's what I'm saying.
uncontacted
Yeah,
people?
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Some
Yeah.
guy in the jungle.
Yeah.
It's been known that it's called invincible ignorance because they don't know what the truth is.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that they can be saved as well.
So, what are your thoughts on evolution?
Wow. The Darwin thing?
Yeah.
I don't really go for it.
No?
Yeah. Ice Age, dinosaurs, what did they turn into? I mean, things became extinct at some point. I don't think I was some kind of legless thing that crawled out of the ocean. I don't think I came from that. I think I was created.
Do you think other things were legless things that came out of the ocean? Do you think like multi-celled organisms came out of single-celled organisms and there was some sort of a natural selection and random mutation and it led to everything else but us?
Sure, look at gain of function.
Right.
You can make stuff happen. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure stuff did happen. But I think it's all part of creation. I think it's all ordered. I think anything left to itself without some kind of intelligence behind it will devolve into chaos. And so that there has to be some big intelligence that orchestrates everything. Not that we don't have chaos in the world, but I think that's our own making.
But what do you think separates us from all the other creatures?
Wow. I think we have a soul. We're created with a soul. And, I went to a restaurant last night. It was a steakhouse in Austin. And it was interesting because all the pictures on the wall are pictures of animals that look resentful, like cows and steers staring at you, looking angry as you rip into a steak. But I just believe we are higher than those creatures because we have a soul, we have an intellect above theirs, and we aspire to higher things. We have aspirations.
Right.
And this is part of why people drink and smoke and do dope and all this kind of stuff is because they're looking for a spiritual experience. They're looking for, like they actually call alcohol spirits. I mean,
right.
They're looking for something higher. And I think we all have that yearning in that we want to be happy and we want to be at peace and we want everything to be hunky-dory. So there's this yearning inbuilt in all of us for that, to aspire to something greater. And that's why we're inspired by stories, I think, because it's like, hero stories. Joseph Campbell's stuff, The Hero with a Thousand Faces and stuff. It's like these stories inspire us. I was at a party the other day in Tennessee, and you think, Tennessee, what's going to happen there? It's going to be squeal like a pig. No. Man, there's some people live in Tennessee.
Sure.
But like amazing people. And I found myself in a conversation with 4 tier 1 dudes, all of who did something extraordinary. And it was that Tom Slattersly guy. It was the Black Hawk Down guy. There was Sean Ryan, you probably heard of this guy.
Friend of his.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There was a guy called Christian Craighead. You know who that guy is?
No.
Whoa. And then there was Eddie. They wrote a book about him.
Eddie Gallagher?
Gallagher, yeah. Eddie Gallagher. I was talking to 4 of these guys at the same time. And I didn't know who do you even talk to? But their stories are amazing. Especially, and the one guy I ended up talking to was an SAS guy, British SAS. And he just looks like a bank teller. But he did something extraordinary and incredibly brave and with no regard for himself, only regard for other people. And it was like, whoa, you hear these stories and it's sort of just like, it pumps you up. You think, could I do that? Could I be that person? I don't know if I could. I don't, in a way, I don't even want to ever find out because you have to be in an extreme situation.
Right.
But hearing about other people and how they behave in situations that are difficult is very inspiring. So, it's, there's so many of those stories around and through history.
Well, that's another unique thing about human beings is that we learn from others in a very extraordinary way. And that's one of the reasons why we like stories.
Yeah.
Why we like myths and fables, because there's lessons you can apply to your own life without having to actually go through those things.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I made a film about that guy, Desmond Doss. I don't know if you saw it. It was like Hacksaw Ridge. It was this film, and it was about a medic who figured so much killing going on, he's going to go into the battlefield and save lives. And he didn't have a weapon. And he was in the worst place on earth. And he got a Congressional Medal of Honor because he kept going in to the worst place possible and dragging wounded guys out with no regard for himself. I mean, who does that kind of stuff?
Right.
And over again. He didn't just do it once. He did it hundreds of times. He finally got, hit with shrapnel and a bunch of other stuff, but he lived to be an old man. But wow. And it was just pure faith, So, those guys, those kind of stories inspire the hell out of me. Anyway.
So, back to this idea of evolution. So, do you believe that evolution exists in animals? Or do you think there's some sort of a natural selection process, or do you think that it is all intelligent design?
Well, I think everything was created, right? And maybe things do move on and adapt and change through time, but I think that that's a function of an intelligence also. And, look at the fires in L.A., what's that going to do? It's going to give me a new house, maybe.
Maybe.
And
or a new place to live.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I'm just not totally convinced. I feel it in my and I can't really. I'm sorry, I can't intellectually tell you why I don't believe in evolution, but I don't. It's just a feeling. I don't think I was some ape, or I don't think my ancestors were. I think they had to be pretty smart to survive.
So what do you think all these pre-human hominids are that they keep discovering?
Like, tell me what a pre-human hominid
Like
is.
Australopithecus,
Oh, right.
or some of the other human-like creatures that never made it, like Denisovans, Neanderthals.
Yeah, stuff like that. Okay, well, they've got something called Zinjanthropus. You remember him?
No.
Zinjanthropus, man. And he was like, he looked kind of like this. But he was like, they looked at it, and they did some core samples on it, and it was put out there by people advocating evolution, and they discovered that it was a human skull attached to the jaw of an ape.
Oh, I do remember
So it was
this.
a hoax.
Yeah, there's been some hoaxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's also been real stuff.
Really?
Yeah, you don't think so?
Well, maybe.
Well, what do
Well, like, I don't know, tell me.
well, what was that one that we looked at the other day that was one of the first pre-humans that buried their young, or buried their dead, rather? It was Homo naldi. What was it? Remember that? I can't remember how to say it, but Naledi. Yeah, a pre-human hominid, very small creature that buried their young, or buried their dead. Rather, I keep saying buried their young. They buried their dead. Australopithecus. There's a bunch of different. The Lucy skeleton. There's a bunch of different pre-human hominids.
Yeah, maybe they were monkeys. I don't know.
Yeah.
But-
Well, they're similar to us, just not where we are.
Yeah.
They're on the road to becoming what it means to be a human being.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do you think those are?
I don't know. They could be animals, or they could be like, look at today. You can get some mosquito can bite you, and your kid can be born with a malformed skull or something. It's like, they have those,
Yeah, but this is like a genetic thing. Like they've mapped the genome of these creatures.
Oh, they have?
They're different. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to explain those, Joe. I don't know.
But you do think that human beings were created by
Sure,
God?
I do. Yeah.
When do you think that happened?
When? Oh, probably, and not that long ago.
Really?
No, not really.
Like, what do you mean by not that long ago?
Probably only about 8,000 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you think things like Göbekli Tepe are when they find these constructions that are carbon dated to 11,000 plus years old?
I question carbon dating.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes things a lot simpler.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of money in claims and I don't know.
Real
Water.
Water's there. Yeah. Well, carbon dating seems to be pretty rock solid studies.
Yeah.
I mean, the science behind radiocarbon dating and detecting carbon isotopes. It's like that's pretty legit.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't square it.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to.
And I don't have to. And
Yeah.
what difference is it going to make to me?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's it doesn't make a difference in terms of your experience in this life on Earth.
No.
Like you can have your faith and your ideas and live a great life from beginning to end, and it might not suit you to really ponder evolution and all the puzzles and problems.
No. It doesn't. You know.
Yeah.
And I just I look at all sorts of stuff like that, like, the icebergs melting and the water overflowing.
It's not.
Ever have a glass full of ice and watched it melt? Did you ever see the glass flow over?
No.
It takes up less room,
Yeah.
The hot greenhouse, whatever. I don't
Well,
know.
there's a lot of horse shit that's involved in climate change for sure. I've studied that, and I've had many discussions over the last 4 years. The problem with anything is that once a narrative gets established, and then there's a profit attached to the solution to that narrative.
Yes.
And that's green energy and green energy bills, and there's businesses that are wrapped around there. And then there's also this fear that they love to pump into people about climate change, that they terrify the shit out of young people that we're going to destroy the world and climate change, you must act now. And then you become beholden to the political party that is espousing these ideas, and then your enemy is the deniers of this science, even
Yes.
though you don't even understand the science.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you see the Washington Post article that they published recently about temperature change on Earth?
No.
Well, there's a like what they've realized is over the last, X amount of thousands of years that the temperature on Earth is plummeting.
Yeah.
And it's dropping. And then when they look at the dips, this is the most important thing for anybody that's really freaked out about climate change. There's no static temperature of Earth ever. Mm-hmm. There's never been a time where it maintains a temperature until human beings came along and fucked it all up. Mm-hmm. That is just not real. Mm-hmm. Before human beings ever existed, if you trust these core samples, there's been a giant rise and fall and this constant dip.
Ice
There
age
it is.
Yeah.
Scientists have captured Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Here's a surprising place we stand now. Look at the dip at the end.
Whoa.
That's where we are.
Yeah,
That's reality.
Okay.
And then if you look at the course of history, you look at the rise and fall, like it's never a straight line. Way before human beings ever existed, if you believe these silly people. Way before human beings had ever existed. There's always this rise and fall. And this idea that the whole thing is based on carbon emissions from human beings is total bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's not true. Right. We might be having an effect, but we're having a small effect, a very small effect. And the other things are completely outside of our control, including solar activity, the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of factors. There's all sorts of factors involving natural activities like volcanic emissions, which devastate. The entire human race was knocked down to a few thousand people.
Yeah.
At one point in time because of the Toba volcano.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, no light.
Yeah, no light for years.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. And the people that survive are fucking barbarians.
Yeah.
The most savage. And then it takes a long time before they can figure out civilization again after that.
Right. It's like dinosaurs. They just stop. Mm-hmm. So what did they evolve into?
Chickens.
I guess.
Birds, raptors.
Yeah.
Well, they think a lot of dinosaurs had feathers now.
Yeah.
That's the newest thing.
Yeah. Maybe.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I need to take a pee. I'm so
Okay,
desperate.
let's take a peek. Let's take a peek. We'll take a break. We'll be
I
right
need
back.
to take a piddle. It's a nice picture. It's.
That's got to be a moment in your head where you just like every now and then just go, fuck.
Yeah. It is funny. Yeah. But it was a good picture. The only thing that was going through my head was, okay, I just can't look bad. And I didn't have anything, no grooming implements, so I just tried my best to not look too bad. There you go.
Yeah, you talk about humility.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what gives you more humility than being publicly humiliated?
Sure.
Yeah.
Public humiliation. And it's, you know what? For most people, it is their number one fear
Sure.
is public humiliation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public speaking, and because of that, public
Yeah.
humiliation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Because we're so concerned about other people's opinions of us.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we're
I'm
not sure
callous
of
to
our
it
own
now,
opinions
you
about it.
know.
Well, you've been through a lot.
Well, so have you.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
remember, I think
Sure.
they were giving you a grilling once for taking horseworm medicine.
Yeah. Funny.
Funny
Funny how that works.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Well,
funny how that does work.
Yeah. What's really funny is how that was a part of the demise of mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
Because people were like, well, this is crazy. This doesn't make... Are you guys really the news? Like, what is this?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
They seem to be complicit with a,
Oh, 100%.
and you think, well, why? Well, why?
Because of money.
I
I
guess.
think this is what we were talking about before, that there is good and evil.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes it manifests itself in a very clear and obvious way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what that was. That was evil. That was putting people's lives second and putting money first.
Well, I don't know why Fauci's still walking around.
How is that guy still walking around?
I don't get it.
If just people understand the history of the AIDS crisis and what that guy did back then.
Did you read that book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
the book. I listened to it.
Yeah, I did too.
I drove up to San Francisco and I listened to it, and I had road rage.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, whoa, how is he still there?
First of all, people that don't believe it, how come RFK Jr. didn't get sued?
Yeah.
How come there's no lawsuits? If there was lies, there would be lawsuits.
No, but that's
He
right.
would be publicly humiliated. Instead, they kept that book off bestseller lists. That book sold millions of copies.
I know.
They hid it. That's when you find out that bestseller lists are actually curated. It's not really bestseller.
Yeah. It's censored. It's all censored.
Yeah.
Everything's censored,
But that book is an accurate depiction of what Anthony Fauci did during the AIDS crisis, which
Yes.
probably was an AZT crisis.
Yeah, and
more
now
than it was an AIDS crisis.
I mean, it's fairly incontrovertible now that he
Right.
was fooling with gain of function.
100%.
And it's why is he still around?
Right.
Or at least free.
Right. And no repercussions.
Yeah, whatever happened to that story where the wombat and the weasel got together and they
Yeah.
were horsing around and a bat pissed on him with a
pangolin.
golden shower?
Yeah.
It's like, and all of a sudden it was in a wet market.
Yeah.
Very wet market. You got
Complete total horseshit. And
Totally.
the scientists that we're supposed to trust
Yeah,
were pitching that horseshit.
It was like the AIDS thing. Some green monkey bit
Mm-hmm.
a Qantas steward on the ass. Then he went around the world and got everybody sick. And it was like, ridiculous.
If you want to go to the AIDS rabbit hole, look up a guy named Peter Duesberg.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
I read that book.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
crazy. 'Cause
Yeah,
if
yeah,
he's telling the truth, this is the fucking COVID crisis times 1,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had him on the podcast way back in the day. It was one of the earlier guests that I had. It was like way back in like 2010. And it was one of the first times I got openly attacked for someone being on the podcast. There was like, blood is on your hands. I'm like, first of all, no, it's not. It's 2010. Who's dying of AIDS? 0 people. So stop. It's not blood's on your hand. Like, if this guy's correct, he's a tenured professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who is like, his work on cancer is, everybody thinks it's groundbreaking work, brilliant doctor, but he was a heretic. He was a guy who stood outside of Fauci's
The narrative,
doctrine and the narrative, and he said, I don't believe that HIV is what's causing this when all these people that are having these immune systems are all heavy drug users.
Yeah, well, that's
He's
right.
like, I think this is a disease of a decimation of the immune system due to heavy drug use, and then on top of that, you're prescribing this chemical, this AZT, that kills people.
Yeah.
No, they stopped using it for chemotherapy because it was killing them quicker than cancer was.
I was in the Sydney Theatre Company in the 90s, and I was going to a funeral once a month of friends. They were all dying. It's crazy in the 80s and 90s.
And they were all getting AZT.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the ones that were getting AZT, even the ones that were asymptomatic,
Yeah.
like Magic Johnson, they were giving Magic Johnson AZT. He had to stop taking it
Yeah.
because he was making him sick. It was killing him.
Yeah. Yeah, I read it. And it's even with RFK's book. And he's an amazing guy. People say, oh, he's kooky, he's crazy. He's not crazy.
He's not.
He's one of the most erudite. You know, he's not, they say he's an anti-vaxxer. He's not.
He's not.
He's like he's a very shrewd. He's never lost a case, I don't think. When he brings something to suit, I don't think he's ever been defeated. But that book is not just him. It's him and about 1,000 highly qualified scientists and physicians commenting on
Yes.
the whole situation. So
Yeah.
when you read it, it's a pretty convincing document. And you're right, nobody sued him for it.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty scary.
Well, not only did they not sue him, their response is to try to ignore it. They don't want to debate him on it. They don't want to do anything.
No.
They want to just ignore it and hope it goes away. But it doesn't go away. And the more people talk about it, the more people read it. And when you do read it and you go, if this is true, what the fuck is going on? And how is that monster still loose?
Yeah. Oh, well.
And he seems like a monster. The way he talks about things, he just seems. Well, first of all, there's so many instances of him lying. There's so many, like, where he said one thing, 2 years later it turns out to be a lie. Said one, like, whether it is the natural
mask thing,
yeah,
or
the mask thing, whether it's the natural spillover, you know, the lies about gain of function to Congress. You know,
sure.
When he was lying to Rand Paul about whether or not they did gain of function research. Like, how is that not perjury? How is he not in trouble?
Yeah. Well, hey, other mysteries, you know.
Well, then the Biden administration is now talking about taking that guy and giving him a full pardon. It's like fucking crazy.
Yeah, they might. You know, I gave Hunter a pardon.
Yeah.
But
Hunter's like,
Hunter
it's
didn't
his
need a
son.
pardon. Was he indicted?
Well, I mean, he was in trouble for tax evasion.
Oh, I see.
There's a lot of tax problems. He definitely did some uncool things. And then there's the Burisma thing. But the crazy thing about his pardon is it starts at the time of him being involved in Burisma. So it's from 2011 all the way to today.
Right.
That's what he pardoned him. It's the biggest sweeping pardon that anyone's ever received ever. And Biden's pardoned more people than anybody ever, too.
Yeah.
He was already over 8,000 people pardoned.
Yeah. A lot of criminals on death
Yeah.
row and stuff.
Well, there's that, but then there's also people that like the Kids for Cash judges. You know, where they were locking up kids and putting them in child detention centers because they wanted money, and they were
Right.
doing it for kickbacks.
Yeah. I saw that.
Evil.
There was a documentary.
Yeah, evil. Again, what we're talking about, good and evil.
Yeah.
Like these are real things, and rational people that profess themselves to be intelligent and secular, they don't want to believe in good and evil. They don't think that they just think people do bad things. People have motivations, they do bad things, but they don't want to believe in the concept of good and evil because these are biblical concepts,
They are.
right?
Yeah. And they've been around since the beginning.
And people want to pretend they're smarter than the people that sort of embrace these biblical concepts.
Right. Or, I think that goes into evolution again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are we smarter than our grandparents, you know? I don't know.
Well, we are about some things, but we can't survive the way they did.
Nope.
They are obviously intelligent.
Yeah.
It's just they didn't have access to information the way we do. But there's a difference between information and intelligence.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have many devices for information. I read books. I read mostly history books.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, I got to recommend a book to you.
Okay.
It's fascinating, and it's called The Frontiersman, and it's about a guy called Simon Kenton. You ever hear of this guy?
No.
Whoa. And it was written by a guy who's now deceased. His name is Alan Eckert, and it is really about opening up Ohio and Kentucky and places like that with this guy Simon Kenton, who was just an Irish immigrant. He wasn't much for farming and stuff, but he thought he killed a guy. And so he ran away because he thought he'd be indicted for some crime or something. And he ended up being this frontiersman. And it's a very interesting document because you get the history of what was going on at the time when the country was opening up between the settlers and the Indians, the Shawnee. One of the most brutal books I've ever read.
Really?
Oh, it's very well done, and it has a narrative, but it's reconstructed from all kinds of historical documents and letters and diaries and all this kind of stuff. So I think the guy took about 15 years to sort of compile all this stuff and write it. And the first half of the book is about this guy, Simon Kenton, and the second half is about Tecumseh, the chief. Really great book. One of the most fascinating books I've read. You can't put it down.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like little chapters.
I'm gonna get that right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever read The Empire of the Summer Moon?
No.
The Empire of the Summer Moon is about the Comanche.
Oh yeah.
And it's all about the settling of this area.
Right.
It's fucking incredible.
Right.
And again, one of the most brutal books ever.
Mm-hmm.
So this is The Frontiersman.
The Frontiersman by Alan Eckert. Yeah.
I'm gonna check that right now,
It's
just
cool.
so that I make sure that I have it.
Yeah. And it's all in little bite-sized chunks. And it actually, for a history book, it has this incredible narrative with heroes and villains and all the players. Very interesting document.
I'm getting it right now.
Oh, yeah. Don't read it before bed.
No?
No, it gets pretty dark.
Why are you so drawn to history?
I don't know. I think because maybe I'm trying to learn something. It's been about 80 years since the last big war.
Mm-hmm. Alan Eckert, got it.
I think I just want to learn, I mean, my dad went to World War II. He went to Guadalcanal, right? He got bit by mosquitoes. He had, malaria. Which is interesting to note that he used to take hydroxychloroquine when he get a malaria attack.
Isn't that crazy?
And then when my doctor recommended I get it when I had COVID, they gouged me $800. It used to cost him $30. They wanted $800 for that. They were gouging.
Well, not only that, when Trump talked about it, then they all of a sudden they demonized it.
Yeah, they laughed.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's an antiviral.
It works.
Yeah, it works on malaria.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
people have been taking it forever.
Sure, pregnant women can take it if they
Yeah.
have the flu, and it doesn't hurt the baby. It's
Yeah.
pretty safe. It's like ivermectin.
But that's what's so bizarre about the time that we just went through, because there's more information now available to people instantaneously than ever before.
Yeah.
You look it up on your phone, you instantly know, oh, ivermectin, the guy who created it won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
15. Yeah, for
What?
use in human beings.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, who's running this thing?
And it's harmless. And
Yeah.
it wasn't made for horses. It was
Right.
made for people. And then they used it for horses.
Right.
Right. So
Well, it's like saying penicillin is for horses, because they use that on horses too. Like, that's stupid.
they told me
Like,
it was for moldy bread.
That's what it was from, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's a lot of medications used on animals, too. You can't say it's a veterinary medication just because it's also used on animals.
No, that's
when
true.
It's been used on, literally prescribed billions of times on human beings.
Yeah, it's like the stem cell stuff. They started using it on horses with emphysematic lung conditions, racehorses, because they would bleed. And they got the stem cells from the umbilical cords of their offspring, injected it into them, and it healed their lungs, which is part of my story. Because I smoked for 45 years, and I couldn't stop. And I read this silly book by Alan Carr, not the little guy who managed the Village People in the caftan, the little fat guy, but no, this other guy, Alan Carr. And he wrote this book, and it's the only thing that made me stop. So it worked like crazy. But
The book made you stop? Like, what
the
was
book made me stop.
what
I
was
read
in the
this
book?
book. It was the book called The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And it's a silly title, right? And it was sad, and my son gave it to me. He said, "Stop smoking, Dad. Here's this book." I left it on. I used to walk past the bookshelf and go, "Dumb book, dumb title," And then I finally, my doctor said, "You have first stage emphysema." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." He said, "Yeah, you got to get the smoke." I said, "I better read this book." So I read the book and I stopped. Right? So it was, I think it was like neurolinguistic programming or something like that. You read it and you kind of self-hypnotize yourself. But it worked.
What did the book tell you? Like,
It said, it didn't tell you you're bad, you're going to die. It didn't tell you all that sort of stuff. It was like, I mean, they had things like, maybe I'm blowing it, but they had a chapter where it says, okay, we focused on the negative aspects of smoking. Now we're going to talk about the good aspects of smoking in the next chapter. And then you turn the page and the page is empty, And it's just a trick. It's a mind trick. The whole thing was a mind trick, but it worked. And I don't know why it worked. But it was sort of like self-hypnosis while you're reading the book. And it wasn't a negative thing like, I got to stop this. It's bad. I'm scared. It wasn't even that. In fact, if I hadn't had the stem cells afterwards, my lungs completely healed from that, by the way.
Did it do it intravenously?
Yeah, intravenous. And it gets stuck in your lungs. And it
Was this
helped.
Dr. Reardon?
That was Reardon.
Yeah.
We talked, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
Stem cells are incredible. And the fact that you can't get them the way they can get them in overseas, the way you can get it in Panama where Reardon has his clinic, and Tijuana.
They're getting better here.
They're getting better, but there's so much resistance because of the FDA.
Yeah, sure.
And the resistance is purely because of money. It's an evil thing. It's not because they're not effective. It's not because they're dangerous. It's just because of money.
I think so. And,
Yeah.
there's an agenda. I think, pharma wants to keep you on stuff.
Yeah.
They want to sell you something. So if there's a surefire cure for something, it's not necessarily hailed.
No. Well, and then there's also the problem of the media. The media is lockstep in with these businesses that are promoting these things.
Yes.
And they're not giving you information. They're giving you propaganda before they're giving you information. Propaganda is more important to them than information.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy. It's like, we're counting on you guys, and you fucked us. You fucked us for 4 years with this COVID thing, and now you expect us to listen to you about the fucking swine flu or the bird flu or whatever other thing you're trying to freak us out about, which always coincides with some sort of a political event. Like, here it is, the inauguration of the new president, and oh, look at this. There's a new
What do we got?
disease.
What do we got now? What is it?
Yeah.
Do you think there will be?
Well, there is. There's this fucking swine flu,
Yeah.
H5N1, whatever
I
it is.
thought it was bird flu.
One bird flu. One person died. One person in America. First person died. 65 years old with a bunch of comorbidities,
Yeah, okay.
and which is usually what it is. But
Yeah.
by the way, 65 people with a bunch of comorbidities die all the time of nothing. They die of anything. This is like a car that's falling apart, and you run over a nail, and the nail killed the car. No, that car was falling the fuck apart.
Yeah.
Like the nail you ran over was the last nail in the coffin, but the thing was falling apart.
I got COVID from my gardener, and he had it first, and then I got it. I was like, did I grab the hose or what? What was? I don't know, but it was. I knew the guy for 20 years, and we both went to the same hospital, and he died and I didn't.
Jesus.
I think we both got remdesivir, which is not good.
Not good.
Not good, man.
Causes kidney failure.
I know. I couldn't walk for 3 months after I had that stuff.
Really?
Because it kills you. I found out afterwards it kills you, and that's why I wonder about Fauci.
Oh, you should wonder about that guy.
Yeah.
When meanwhile, they were trying to stop people from getting monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've restricted monoclonal antibodies, which is fucking insane because they wanted to promote that vaccine because they wanted to profit off of it, which brings us back again to evil. Evil's real. It's real. Putting money over human lives is evil.
I agree.
It's a real thing, and there's a temptation to do it too, which is even more crazy.
Yeah. I don't believe that there is anything that can afflict mankind that hasn't got a natural cure for it. I think that there has to be. It just makes sense to me. Now, I couldn't prove that, but I just believe that.
Yeah.
That there's got to be something that cures things. And I'll tell you a good story.
Okay.
I have 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer. All 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all. And they had some serious stuff going on.
And what did they take?
Jesus. They took what you've heard they've taken.
Ivermectin
Fenbendazole.
and fenbendazole. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm hearing that a lot.
They
There's-
drank hydrochloride something or other.
There's studies on that
There's-
now where people have proven that
People
they've
drinking methylene
yeah.
blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a textile dye. And now they find out it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here? How is our medical institutions, how have they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable? That they can't control it. They don't have a patent on it, whether it's vitamin D, K2, and magnesium,
Yep.
Well,
yeah. I'm doing
zinc
all
and
that- I do all
quercetin.
that stuff.
I do all that stuff.
Did you do the Brecca thing?
Yeah.
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 Me too. I lost
I
like
do all
30.
that stuff,
I lost
yeah.
like 30 pounds, right?
It's fantastic.
I was talking to Dana, and he said, "Oh, you know, I was, you know," and I said, "Yeah, I got to do something about this." I'm like, I'm 5'10", 235. You know, that's too fat.
Yeah.
So I had to sort of roll it back some. Now I'm under 200, which is about
That's great.
where it should be, you know. And it was that Brecca stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, Gary's a national treasure.
Yeah.
And
Jump
he
in
gets
the cold
shit
plunge.
on all over the place, too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Going to sauna, but I feel better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I do all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Cold plunge, sauna. I'm ritualistic with it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
it's part of my everyday life.
I hear your cold plunge is like 34 degrees. I don't understand that, though. I mean, dude, 34 degrees.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's cold.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, you get accustomed to it. It to me is not.
guess.
I mean, it sucks. Every time I do it, I'm like, don't do it. Don't. There's like the part of me that's like my inner bitch. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, we don't have to do this. We don't have to do this. But luckily, the general is stronger than the inner bitch. The general is always telling, shut the fuck up
He
and
does,
get in
yeah.
there, and I
Okay.
just get in there every day. But
I do like 48, man.
that
That's-
inner bitch is always talking though. He never shuts up.
No.
Never shuts up. Don't
Well,
ever think that it, like, even though I do it every day, anybody who's like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how I do it either, but I fucking do it. I make sure I do it. I'm the boss.
Yeah. Do you do the saunas, too?
Oh,
do you
yeah.
do the red light bed?
I have a red light bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sauna, red light bed. I have a hyperbaric chamber.
Wow.
I have everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric chambers are the
Yeah.
best, man.
It's incredible.
Good
Incredible.
brain work. I got to get back in there. I
Oh.
feel like I got more holes in my head.
It's phenomenal for just overall recovery for everything, and it's also been shown to lengthen telomeres. They did a study out of
yeah?
Israel. Yeah, they gave people a protocol over 90 days. You do 60 sessions of 90 minutes over 90 days,
Yeah.
and it's shown to lengthen telomeres and decrease your biological age.
Okay.
And you just feel fucking great.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, you're flooding your body with oxygen. Most diseases, a lot of them, come from a lack of oxygen. You know, your body not having enough oxygen is very bad for you.
Yeah. I used to have a Qigong master. This is what kind of blows my mind about medicine and about ancient stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was from Shanghai. He didn't speak much English, right? A little bit. His wife would translate for him. And he'd come in and he could like point at you, right, from this far away, and you'd feel it. But like feel it like as palpable as someone pushing you around. It's like, ugh, ugh.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not kidding. They like
What year
this.
was this when this was happening?
Oh shit! I met him when I was like 40.
Yeah.
He only just passed away.
Damn, too bad. I'd like to meet that guy.
Oh no, there's people like him. There are others
Yeah?
like it. Oh yeah, he's not the only one. He learned it from somebody, and I think he imparted some knowledge. But you know, he would get you, and he could like point at you and stuff like that, and it makes you wonder, like, how did they build the pyramids? You know, I mean, if he can use his mind and kind of get into quantum physics and move shit around with thought and with energy, there's actual energy coming out of his fingers. They could have built the pyramids like that. I don't know. Maybe somebody had that down somewhere. But
Well, I'd like to hear a better explanation.
me too. Well, it was really weird. He one time he was working on me, and he was working on my liver. He said, "Your liver's blocked," because he looks at you, and if you look at him, he looks away, and his wife engages you while he checks you out, and then he gives you a little body map, and he puts X's all over it, and you go, "Yeah, that's right. I got a pain here and a thing there," and he knows where everything is. He knows exactly what's going on.
Did you ask him is he seeing your aura? Like, what is he seeing?
Everything. He sees everything. He was an allopathic doctor first. He went to medical school. He could write your prescription. He could do all that stuff. He was a doctor. And then he saw a Qigong master, this old guy, and people were lining up getting cured, and he thought, that's really interesting. And he learned that on top of being an allopathic doctor. So one day he's at me on my back, and he's pushing, and I can feel my back, and I'm at the wall, and there's a poster of a film on the wall, you know, in my office, and I'm looking at, and I can see him in the background, and he's like down like this, like like kung fu, pointing
Yeah.
rays of energy at me, and he hit me. He started yelling at my organ, at my liver, like get out, you know, whatever, and I went up the wall, and there was like 8 inches of air under my heels, and I was up the wall. And I was like, whoa, and I came back down, and it freaked me out. And I looked at him, and he just went, he said, don't, it's just science, like that. I said, just science, okay.
Just science.
Yeah, just science. And I was so freaked out. I went to a priest. I said, is this guy demonic or something? Because he's lifting me off the wall. And the priest was like, he was an old Jesuit, right? A traditional old guy. And he was a cross between Jimmy Stewart and Elmer Fudd, you know. That's the way he sounded. And I said, is this anything like demonic about this guy? Like he says, whoa, did he heal you? Like that. And I said, why, yes, he did. And he said, that's all right then. And he says, I have no trouble with something like that because it was within the realm of possibility that somebody had power like that and that it's inexplicable, but that it works. And it did work. He just passed away. He was pretty old.
There was a place that, I bought a comedy club out here, and before the building that we bought was the Ritz Theater on 6th Street, but before that I was under contract to another building, and then this other building was owned by a cult. And this is a crazy story. The cult was awful, horrible. There's a documentary on it. It's called Holy Hell. And this guy who was a gay porn star and a hypnotist. He was a yoga instructor. Got a bunch of people in West Hollywood, and then eventually moved them all out here to Austin. But what this guy was doing, one of the things that he would do to his disciples is he would do a thing called the knowing. And they had to be chosen for it. They had to earn it. And when he would get them and bestow the knowing upon them, he would touch their head, and they would have this incredible experience where they said they contacted God. Now, all these people denounced him eventually. They left the cult. They all said he was a con man and this and that. But they all talked about that experience, and they said it was the most profound experience of their life, that they really do feel like they came in contact with God. And it's like, what can a person, if a person truly believes, and this other person truly believes that they can do this to them, and they have this moment, and something does happen, like what is that all inside of us? Do people have ways of pulling that out of you that we've lost track of, that we don't know? And even an evil person who's running a cult and manipulating people and exploiting people still has this thing that he was able to do to them that even after they've admitted that this guy exploited them, they say that was the most profound moment of their life.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think, there are party tricks that you can get.
Right, but is that party trick, if it really is a pathway to connect you, at least temporarily, with God, that there is a thing inside of us?
Well, that's why I went to the priest, because I thought, because I'm off the floor.
Right.
So I thought, I got to check this out, because this is too weird. And he said, did he heal you? And I said, he did. And he said, that's all right then. Because the guy wasn't trying to get anything out of me.
Right.
In fact, he never charged me.
Really?
The first time I went to see him, he charged me. And it was like, okay. And then he never charged me again. And he used to call me when I was sick.
Really?
I wouldn't call him. He knew when I was sick. He'd call me. He said, I need to come see you. I'm like, okay.
So he had like some sort of a direct line with your energy.
Something. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And he could, this is the other thing. He could teach you martial arts, like quickly, without you having to know what to do. It was a weird thing. He did it firstly with my son, who he got him for a couple of weeks, and like he said, I'm about to show you something. And I went out there and he blindfolded him, and he had these two swords, and he was doing all this, this crazy stuff. I'm like, what the? I said, how did he learn that so fast? He said, it was in him. And I'm like, whoa. And then he started to do a thing that he taught me how to harness this energy and to actually begin what seemed to be almost like involuntary movement. And depending on the hand mode you took, it would create a style of kata or self-defense. I mean, I used to do a crude martial art, not crude, but like a hard martial art.
What was it?
Kyokushinkai.
Okay, yeah.
Way back.
Kyokushin karate.
Yeah. I think it's Korean.
It's Japanese.
It is?
Yeah.
I can't remember. But it's like, I didn't stick with it. But it was, but he got this whole other approach of breathing and visualizations that would actually draw energy into your lower chakras, and then you'd release the energy, and it would create this kind of movement. And I showed it to a friend of mine who was a martial artist. And I said, tell me about the footwork I'm doing here and what I'm doing. And he looked at it and he says, that looks really good to me. I said, it was kind of like, what's that really soft kind of martial?
Tai Chi.
It was like that. I was doing stuff like that. It was crazy. And it was really a great release, but it was about visualization and breath.
Yeah.
And the release of that energy that you pent up from all around, that you visualized, manifesting itself in you.
There's got to be something to all that stuff. People have been practicing Tai Chi for a long time.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be practicing the same movements for all these years if it didn't do something.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It keeps people young and healthy. They do it in China. You see groups of people out in Asia sort of out there in groups doing it all in unison. It's like, it's a good thing. Exercise.
Yeah. What do you do now for exercise?
Oh gosh, I'm terrible. I'm falling apart. I got dead guys parts in my shoulder. I've got, cadaver parts. This shoulder fell apart. This shoulder fell, a hip, a foot. It was terrible. I couldn't walk for about a year almost.
Really?
And so, you fall down. That's partially why I had to go and see Brecca to sort of get the couch potato stuff off. But, I lift weights and I do some, walking and stuff like that, like really get your heart rate up and stuff like that. So, I'm trying. Hey, I'm 69 years old, so it's like it's getting to be like 7 decades worth,
Yeah.
But I want to stay fit if I can. And I banged myself up a little too much in my early life, so I'm paying for it now. And like in your 60s, man, you're not there yet, but stuff starts like giving up on you.
Yep.
It's like,
No, I feel it in my 50s.
oh, yeah. How old are you?
57.
58 is when it starts, man. This
Oh,
is when
Jesus.
Yeah, that's when I first noticed it. It was like, oh, what's going on with this here, the shoulder, and I went down to Reardon, of course, who shot it up with stem cells, and it was good for like 2 years.
You just got to keep going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go back often enough.
That's the thing. I think it's just your body's just not going to heal the way it did when you were younger unless you consistently get therapy for that.
Yeah. You're in good shape, though.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was in reasonable shape at 58, and I think I'm in reasonable shape now. But I'm just, it's just trying to push the old man off and using various methods to do it,
Yeah, that's what it is. Keep
Yeah.
the body as young as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and demand a lot from it.
Mm.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I just demand a lot and make sure I recover.
I think a lot of it's about meditation too. You can actually get into a good headspace that kind of cools you out and stops the stress, even no matter what's going on. I'm going to have to do it tonight when I find out whether I still have a home or not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if anything looks demonic, it's the fires in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were filming Fear Factor and we had to drive home. We had to cancel the shoot or end it early and drive home because the fires had hit. And this was like we were off the 5 and driving home for 50 minutes on the highway. The right side of the highway was in flames.
Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings, like Sauron is coming over the top. It looked fucking insane. It's biblical.
Yeah.
It looks insane.
And you got to be careful too, because you could die. And
Oh,
if you
100%.
can't breathe, I mean, come on.
If you can't breathe, or if the cars in front of you catch fire and the wind blows this way and all the cars catch fire and you can't get off the road because to the right of you is on fire, to the left of you is on fire, and the fire is coming up the highway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, people have died that way.
And it can happen in an instant.
Yep.
I got hung once by mistake. I was on a film set, and I had my neck in a noose, and I was directing the film. So I'm on a ladder, and I'm like, so I'll just be hanging here like this, man. And then the next thing I knew, I was waking up. I was on the floor, and there were all these people standing over looking at me, and I'm saying, what are you people doing? Get to work. It was like, and they said, well, you hung yourself. I said, whoa, you're kidding me. It happens in an instant, and you don't know it. It wasn't painful, nothing. I was just gone.
Well, you probably got choked out.
Yeah, choked out by the noose, and then they grabbed me by the legs and got the rope off. And
Jesus.
Like during Braveheart, it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was funny. So I found out what it was like to sort of go into the next realm. But of course, we did. I was fortunate enough to work with Horion Gracie 39 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he'd just come from Brazil.
Well, I remember when you were doing Lethal Weapon. It was the first time I'd ever seen jiu-jitsu in a movie.
A leg choke on film.
Yeah.
Horion taught me the leg choke. He said, "Now you grab your foot and you."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, and it was cool, but it was. Now my girlfriend does it, and she's like a purple belt. So I've learned.
Really?
Yeah, I've learned not to talk.
Oh,
back.
she's legit.
Yeah, she's legit. Yeah.
Purple belt is basically a black belt. You just need a little bit more time.
Yep.
If you can I always tell all jiu-jitsu students, if you can get to purple belt, you are a black belt. You're going to be a black belt.
Oh, she will
You
be.
just got to stay on that path.
No, she is. She's just obsessed with it. So,
Yeah.
And she's, as I say, I don't talk back to her.
I think the purple belt is the hardest belt to get to
It is.
because it's just like in the beginning, you're just getting crushed.
Mm-hmm.
That's jiu-jitsu, especially for women. It's
Yeah.
so difficult for women because they don't have the physical strength that the men have.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of get away with a lot. If you're a big, strong guy, you can get away with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of shit. But then by the time you get to purple belt, like, man, you have to have real technique and you have to have a real understanding of what's going on.
She's got a good mind. And I think she's like a chess player.
It is like that.
Because I know from fighting with her. She wins arguments when she's wrong. So
Sometimes you let them win, though, right?
you have to.
It's just like you got to walk away.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's like, oh,
You got to go, okay.
it's my second thought of my first action.
Yes,
Get out of
yes,
here.
yeah.
But she got the purple belt.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, it's good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. A woman black belt, that's an unbelievably exceptional woman that can get to that because they have to roll with men. And it's just a
Well, she does.
significant disadvantage.
Big dudes and stuff. And she's like,
Yeah.
and she's done some exceptional things I've heard. So it's like, it's pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't follow it up.
You can still do it.
No, I'm a more baseball bat gun kind of guy. If I'm in trouble, I just it's that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Well, be careful with that in California. You
Yeah,
could wind
really.
up being in jail.
yeah, that's true.
You wind up using it to protect yourself and they'll
Yeah.
lock you up,
Yes, it's.
which is also evil.
Yeah, that happens a bit.
Yeah.
Oh well, there's a perverse nature in our society right now with the law.
When you look at your life now and you're on your third act, as you were saying, like what do you look forward to these days? Is it creating things?
It's
Is
creation.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's about creation, and I figure I'm pretty average at most things, but I'm good at a couple of things. I know how to tell a story on film. I know how to do that. I don't know. That's a weird place to be, but I think a lot can be achieved by art and image, and you can convey a lot without actually having to say it. You can do things to affect people emotionally or spiritually, even without being overt. I always like to reference just a shot that, and it's in a Ridley Scott movie, right? And you don't know why it works, or why it's effective on some level, but it's kind of a profound, effective shot. And it's that first shot in the Gladiator movie where he's running his hand over the wheat, right? With that music and stuff. Why does that work? I don't know. You can't explain it, but it works.
Well, Ridley Scott is a master.
Yeah.
That's a visionary human being. He sees things.
He knows how to shoot.
Yeah.
And that's really good. It's a valid pursuit, I think, in storytelling. If you can do that, every time he goes out there, it's eye candy. It's a feast for the eyes,
Do you have different goals with like different projects? Like obviously, Flight Risk is entertainment. It's
Yes.
fun. It's
Pure
entertaining.
entertainment, yeah. And yes, different goals. And it was the other thing too is it's like we're living in a different time now in the film world. I mean, everything's upside down, and you have to compete in a medium where you have less time, less money. Do it fast, do it now. And it's like, wow, can I do that? I always had the luxury of like, big budget and 3,000 people on horses and all this kind of stuff, or, and was able to take my time with stuff. But I had 22 days, and Here you got it. Tell this story in 22 days. So I felt the challenge of being able to do that and being able to make something that really got people, like they could watch it and enjoy it, you know. And I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. And that's all I want. I just want people to have a nice little ride, a fun ride, entertainment. But yes, you have different goals with things. I mean, the next thing I'm going to tackle is more profound for me. It's going to take more out of me.
This is the resurrection story.
Yeah. And I even had to change my entire life to do it.
How so?
You can't go into a project as profound in nature as that without somehow preparing yourself for it. It's like
Spiritual.
preparing for a fight, you know.
Right.
It's like you have to be fit for the fight. And yeah, so you have to spiritually prepare yourself for that. And that's going to take some sacrifice. And because, I profess this and I profess that. I'm not a great example of Christianity, you know. I'm just, I'm flawed and I make a lot of mistakes, but I have to try and be better somehow in order to go in and make that film. So what does that mean? I think I know what it means, you know.
Well, one of the things that I thought was fascinating was reading and listening to Jim Caviezel talk about his experience playing Christ in your film.
Yeah.
That it just truly changed the course of his whole life.
Well, it was fascinating to watch him work, actually. And most of the time, I just backed away because he was doing something that, and I've seen a lot of people portray Jesus in films, right? And I never buy it. You can't quite buy it. Something creeps in to color it that's not, something's not right or discordant. And some of them are pretty good, but you never quite believe it all the way.
What was the Willem Dafoe movie?
Oh, that was a Scorsese film.
Right. What was that called?
The Last Temptation.
That's right.
Which, interestingly enough, I was in a hotel in the Savoy and I had food poisoning. I was near dead I ate a bad oyster in London. And I was dying in a hotel room. And I couldn't even leave. It was the worst. I think it was like salmonella or something. And I saw this cord on the side of the bed and I pulled it. And all of a sudden, a door opened up and a butler like Jeeves came in. He says, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, whoa. And I said, "I'm really sick." I said, "What do you think I should eat?" "Might I suggest some warm consomme and a cup of tea?" I said, "Okay." So this butler took care of me in this hotel. But while I was there, Scorsese calls the room and he says, "Come here, I want to talk to you." So I go in and talk to Martin. And he's in his room, and all the windows, the screens are drawn. He's got 18 different TVs going on at the same time in this dark room. And he's talking to me about Last Temptation of Christ, and he wants me to play Jesus. And I said,
"Whoa.
I'm not doing it." And I sort of got out of there. And then I went back to my room, and they changed my room. Now, this is really weird. They had changed my room and moved my stuff. And they told me they were going to do it, but I forgot. So I'm using a key to get into my room, and it won't work. And the door opens up all of a sudden, and it's Keith Richards in his underpants standing there staring through me and there's a girl in a mink coat walking around it, mink coat and nothing else, walking in the background. And Keith Richards standing there in his underpants with a spliff. And I'm like, I tried to explain that I thought it was my room, but it wasn't. And, it was ridiculous. I'm 26 years old. And he just looks at me like, he shuts the door in my face. I thought, well, that was my meeting with Keith Richards. He slammed the door in my face. I was like, it's fantastic, Anyway, but what were we talking about?
Caviezel playing Christ.
He did something, I think, that nobody else did. And I think he pulled it off because I totally believed it.
I believed it too.
And it was like, what did he do? He emptied himself out.
Yeah.
And he invited something else in. And he left it. He didn't try anything. He emptied himself out and he meditated. And he let Christ in.
And that role seemed to have had a profound effect on him.
It did.
As a human being.
Oh, absolutely.
And kind of fucked him up in his career.
A little bit. Yeah.
Because people associated him entirely with that film, and then they associated him with Christianity, and then they associated him with right-wing politics, and
Yeah. And then, he got sidetracked by a few guys. I mean, there's some people out there who, like, they get in your ear, and it's like, it's like Cassius, talking to Brutus.
Right.
And they get you up to make a speech somewhere, and next thing you know, it's like, people throwing eggs at you. And it's like, and you wonder, should I even be saying this? And so he stepped on a bunch of landmines. But, it did have a profound effect on him. But I think he was already mostly there anyway. And I noticed that because when I was trying to cast it, I thought, who could play this? And I saw the opening shot from Terry Malick's film, which was The Thin Red Line. And it was just a big close-up of Caviezel. And there was something otherworldly and childlike going on there in the close-up. And I thought, who's that guy? He's amazing. Of course, you couldn't keep the blue eyes. You had to trade him out. So I changed the color of his eyes to brown and all that stuff, so it looked like he came from the region.
Right.
But amazing. What he already had a quality, an ethereal kind of otherworldliness, space cadet quality.
Yeah.
And he's still kind of like that. He's still like, wow. I wish I had met him, or I haven't met him still, but I wish I'd seen him before and then after. To see, like, what did that role change him? Because it seemed to have strengthened his faith. Sure, it did. Yeah. He got in real tight with it, and I think he had some experiences while he was doing it. He suffered a little, and
didn't he get struck by lightning?
Well, there's 2 times there was these lightning strikes happening on the set, and there was this guy with him. He was a young fella, one of the assistants on the film. His name was Jan. And old Jan was like, he's like 6'2", Italian, northern Italian guy. If he tripped in the street, women would slide under him. It was that kind of stuff. The guy was like a babe magnet, right? And I think he was taking full advantage of the gifts he had, but he got hit by lightning the first time. Getting people, we were out on the hill and there was a lightning storm, like with the crosses and stuff.
Oh Jesus!
And this guy called Chieppo, he was a grip, and he never spoke a word to me the whole time. He's just a quiet kind of guy. And I figured, he doesn't know English, so, But he came up to me, and in perfect English, he said, I think you should get all the people off the hill. We could be struck by lightning. And I thought, that's a good idea. Let's get off the hill. So we're moving off the hill. Everybody's getting off. And this kid gets hit through the umbrella, this Jan guy. He gets zapped by lightning, right? But he's 22, and he goes to the disco all night and dance. He's doing the whole, 22 experience. And he comes back the next day, and he's like, yeah, it was great. And then he was with Jim the second time it happened. But this time, I found him in a Fiat Bambino with his knees up around his ears, like waiting for the third strike. He was like, this just doesn't happen twice in the third strike. And he says, I have to change my life. He was like, so it was pretty
filming
funny.
that movie must have had a profound effect on a lot of people, right?
It did,
because you were doing something that wasn't just a film. It was
verite kind of.
Yeah, and it was strengthening people's faith. That film was profound success, and a lot of people dismissed the idea of it even.
Yes.
Especially in Hollywood. I mean, you had to self-fund all that, right?
Yes, it was self-funded, and it was a very strange experience, that one, because I put the money in, and I thought, well, maybe I'll break even. And it was, then I got these messages back. All the majors wouldn't distribute it. So I was like, nobody will distribute it. Okay, I guess I've lost, the money, but it was worth the experience. And so one guy was left in the room at the end when the dust settled. It was some guy. He said, I'll distribute. And he had a little company called Newmarket, and they distributed like 1 or 2 films before. And I think it was a Charlize Theron movie called A Monster, about that horrible serial killer.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll do it. And, it was just really basics. I went and I met the exhibitors. And, and this guy was like the distributor. This little company was just him and a toothless dog and a fax and an assistant. And it was like, okay, what's all the smoke and mirrors about this between the distribution and exhibition? I made handshake deals with all the exhibitors. Yeah, we'll show this. I said, okay. And then we put it out there. And it went out. Nobody expected it to do much, but it did phenomenally well. And there was this kind of thing in the town. They said, did anyone just see that? Anyone just see what that guy did? Can't let that guy do that again. And we don't want anyone doing that, because it sort of walked around the entire system.
Yes.
And scored.
Right. So there was two things. There was resistance to the Christianity aspect of it and promotion of Christianity. Mm-hmm. And then there was resistance to the fact that you went outside the system.
It was outside. Well, I had no alternative.
Right.
Because no major would back it.
Because of the Christianity aspect of it.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rupert Murdoch said, he wanted to. And then he said, nah. And then somebody advised him and said he'd be out of business in 5 years. Rupert Murdoch.
Wow.
In 5 years if he distributed that. And I was like, wow, if he's scared, I'm like, I'm gonna crash and burn here. But it actually did all right.
It did phenomenal.
Yeah. And then, again, I tried to, then I went with the studio on Apocalypto, but, that didn't work out so well.
It didn't?
No.
In what way?
Well, it was interesting. The film was a film it had no stars. It was in another language, and it came out on a weekend with another film that had Leo in it, and another film that had Cameron Diaz in it. And so those three films came out on the same weekend, and the one with no stars and without the language won the weekend monetarily. It won the box office by a narrow margin on the other two. And the second week out, Disney pulled the screens.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought, oh, that's funny. Well, screens are gone. I guess there's another agenda. Because that was another self-funded one.
Did they pull the screens because they had movies that they had already made deals with?
I think so. But, it's just politics and, And I think perhaps the distribution deal on that wasn't as good as on something else or, So it's, it's all business.
It's a phenomenal movie, though.
It's a great film, yeah. And it did better afterwards.
In DVD and streaming and all that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched it again like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it in a while, and I watched it again, and I had forgot a bunch of aspects of it. I'm like, God damn, this is a good movie.
It's just primal.
Yes.
And I think I love primitive stuff, and primal emotions. I mean, basically, it's a guy just trying to get back home to save his wife and kid. And he's got a lot of obstacles in the way, like jaguars and bad guys chasing him and trying to skin him and trying to rip his heart out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I sat in a room with my assistant. He said, what do you want to do next? Chase movie? He said, well, so we found out where the Mayan canoes and Columbus and all that, and then we just started making the story up in the room, and we wrote it.
Wow.
And, yeah. Some assistant, man. He actually tapped it out. Crazy.
So when you're making this resurrection movie now, you also have this obligation. There's this. You're doing a very similar thing that you were doing with the Passion of the Christ, where this is a profound story.
Yes.
When you put something like that together, how do you choose who's going to be the next Jesus?
You use him again.
Caviezel.
Yeah, I know it's 20 years later.
Too.
It's 20 years later, but it's...
Yeah, but it's the right guy.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be 3 days later, but he got 20 years older. And I think I have to use a few techniques that they've started to get really good with
the CGI and they can do amazing things now.
You can actually get some of the same people.
And by the time you film it, it'll be even better.
Yeah.
When are you going to start filming?
I'm hoping next year sometime. There's a lot required because it is, I'll just tell you this, it's an acid trip when we wrote it. It is like, I've never read anything like it. And my brother and I and Randall all sort of congregated on this, so there's some good heads put together, but there's some crazy stuff. And I think in order to really tell the story properly, you have to start with the fall of the angels, right?
Yeah.
Which is you're in another place. You're in another realm. You know, you need to go to hell. You need to go to Sheol.
So you're going to have hell, you're going to have Satan, all that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Sure, you gotta, yeah.
Right.
You gotta have his origin.
How do you depict that?
This is a good question. And I think I have ideas about how to do that. And ideas about how to evoke things and emotions in people from the way you depict it and the way you shoot it. So I've been thinking about it for a long time. So it's not going to be easy, and it's going to require a lot of planning. And I'm not wholly sure I can pull it off, to tell you the truth. It's really super ambitious. But I'll take a crack at it, because that's what you got to do, right? Walk up to the plate, right? So I think I can get it. But it's not about me, you know.
Right.
It's about something else.
Well,
So-
if anybody can do it, you can do it.
Well, I hope so. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's trying to find the way in that's not like cheesy or obvious, but that actually it's almost like a magic trick in a sense. It's diversion. It's obfuscate this, show that. Look over here. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
It's
Do you have a title?
yeah. It's just like the resurrection of the Christ.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like so. That's a title, and yeah, it's very ambitious. That's all I'll say. It took a long time to write. It's really ambitious, and it goes from like the fall of the angels to the death of the last apostle.
Do you have a start date?
I don't have a start date. I just have to begin pre-production and see what happens. And it's just going to roll in its own time. It's taking its own time. I thought it was late. I thought, oh, it's taking too long. It's taking too long, but it's probably just right. Yeah, it's when it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, if you believe that, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope you're right.
I think I'm right. My instincts are that I'm right.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I was going to trust anybody with that story, it would be you.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a massive thing, and theologically, it's something that you have to really look at and make correlations that ring true, because it's not all written.
Do you consult with someone, like a biblical scholar?
Oh,
or-
yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And, of course, you know, there's your own a thing that comes into it from having read the book a few times. You read the book a few times, and it's amazing how your memory, how there's these recessive files somewhere in the background, how you can correlate this piece to that piece over there. And that's important, because juxtaposition is everything with this story. And what it means in a bigger picture.
Yeah.
So it's hard to explain, but it's quite involved.
Yeah, well, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I don't know that you can do it in a foreign language, because the concepts are too difficult now. So that you may have to resort to the vernacular, so that that at least is clear.
Is that up for debate right now with you?
Yeah, it is. I'm thinking like, But like, look, have you seen these apps now where they have this AI stuff where the guy's talking German and then he switches to French and then he's Spanish and then
Yeah.
Chinese? And,
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And his mouth moves and it's the same voice. I mean, it's
Right.
crazy what they do. So, you know,
So you're going to use that kind of a tool, do you think?
you could.
Will you
I mean,
begin it in Aramaic or in Hebrew?
maybe. Yeah. Aramaic is really the kick, isn't it? But, you know, I think I've written it in English, but I wrote the last one in English too and translated it. And then the people had to learn to speak it, because I think there's only about 400 people that actually speak Aramaic still.
Wow.
And apparently they understood it, so I was happy about that.
Wow.
So that was good. Yeah. 400,000 people, sorry,
Oh,
in the world.
that makes more sense.
Yeah. Sorry. 400 people. Yeah.
I've like preserved those 400 people.
Yeah. Not many people speaking Latin still, but that's quite well known.
Well, I can't wait to see it, man.
Yeah.
And I just want to say I appreciate you very much. All the stuff that you've done. You've made some really awesome pieces in your life. You really have.
Thank
It's,
you. Yeah.
Done
Thanks a
some
lot.
great stuff.
Yeah. I'm blown away by where you got to with this, which is like, didn't you start off just smoking a spliff on a couch with a guy? And
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how it happened.
No, that's good.
I just kind of kept doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Thank you.
I watch it all the time.
Thank you. There was no plan to it. I'll tell you that.
No.
There still kind of isn't. I still kind of do it the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Every day you wake up.
Yeah, I just look at my phone. I go online. I say, who do I want to talk to?
Yeah.
This guy might be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Who's
really
next?
it.
Who's next? You get some pretty interesting people.
Yeah,
Yeah. I was amazed at that. I can't remember his name now. Terrence. What? He was all into.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actor. Yeah,
Yeah.
Brilliant
he had
guy.
Had a bunch of stuff going on. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh, he's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's out there. But I mean, you have to be to be one of those guys.
You do.
Well, listen, brother. Thank you very much for everything. Appreciate
you.
you coming in here.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your new movie's great, and all your stuff's great. I'm a big fan. So
Yeah. Tickets on sale today.
yeah. When does it come out?
Oh God, on the
25th?
24th, 25th. Yeah,
yeah.
24th. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, something
So
like
soon.
that. Yeah. It's fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, everybody.